Thank you very much for watching. Today, we present a reading and commentary on Rashomon, a classic short story by Ryunosuke Akutagawa, one of the most important figures in Japanese literature. We hope you enjoy immersing yourself in the world of this timeless work. One evening at dusk, a servant was waiting for the rain to stop beneath the Rashomon gate. Under the wide gate, there was no one else but him. Only a few crickets clung to the large vermilion pillars whose paint had peeled away in places. Since Rashomon stood on Suzaku Avenue, there should have been at least 2 or 3 other people sheltering from the rain, wearing straw hats or court caps, yet there was no one. The reason was that, over the past few years, Kyoto had suffered one disaster after another: earthquakes, violent winds, fires, famine, and disease. As a result, the city had fallen into severe decline. According to old records, Buddhist statues and sacred objects were smashed apart, and the wood, still covered with red paint or gold and silver leaf, was piled along the roads and sold as firewood. With the city in such a state, no one bothered to repair Rashomon Gate. Taking advantage of its decay, foxes and thieves began to live there. Eventually, even unclaimed corpses were brought and dumped at the gate. After nightfall, people found the place so eerie that no one dared go near it. Instead, large numbers of crows gathered there. In the daytime, their number was impossible to count. By evening, tens of thousands of them flew up onto the roof all at once. The sound of their wings echoed around the gate like the roar of distant waves. The servant sat on the top step of the 7-tiered stone staircase. His worn indigo kimono spread beneath him. He absent-mindedly watched the falling rain while touching the large pimple on his right cheek. Earlier, the author wrote that the servant was waiting for the rain to stop, but in truth, even if the rain had stopped, he had nowhere to go. Normally, he would have returned to his master's house. But 3 or 4 days earlier, he had been dismissed from service. As mentioned before, Kyoto had fallen into serious decline, and his dismissal was simply one small result of that hardship. So rather than saying he was waiting for the rain to stop, it would be more accurate to say that the servant, trapped by the rain, stood there helpless and lost. The gloomy weather also affected the servant's mood. The rain that had begun falling earlier in the afternoon showed no sign of stopping, and so, the servant focused on one urgent problem: how to survive until tomorrow. In other words, he tried to find a way to deal with the impossible. As he drifted through his thoughts, he listened to the rain falling on Suzaku Avenue without really hearing it. The rain wrapped around Rashomon Gate, gathering into a steady roar from afar. The evening darkness slowly covered the sky, and the roof tiles of the towering gate nearly disappeared into the dull gray clouds. To deal with the impossible, there was no time to choose one's methods carefully. If he hesitated, he would simply starve to death beneath the wall or on the roadside. His body would then be brought to this gate and dumped like a dog's. After wandering in circles through the same thoughts again and again, the servant finally reached one conclusion. There's no choice but to become a thief. Yet these words did not fully convince him. Though he felt it was unavoidable, he had not completely accepted them. The servant sneezed loudly and then rose with a weary motion. The evening chill in Kyoto was already cold enough to make him long for a fire. The wind swept freely between the pillars of the gate, carrying the darkness with it. The crickets that had been clinging to the painted columns were now gone. Hunching his shoulders, the servant looked around. If there were any place where he could sleep safely for the night sheltered from the rain, and out of sight, he would take it. Then he noticed a wide ladder leading up to the upper level of the gate. Even if someone were up there, it would surely be nothing but corpses. Carefully making sure his sword would not slip from its scabbard, he placed his straw-sandaled foot on the first rung. A few moments later, halfway up the ladder, the servant crouched like a cat, holding his breath as he peered upward. The faint light from above illuminated his right cheek. with its red, swollen pimple beneath his short beard. He had assumed only the dead were above, but as he climbed a few steps higher, he saw a flickering light moving around. Its dull yellow glow swayed across the cobweb-covered ceiling. Anyone lighting a fire atop Rashomon on a rainy night could not be an ordinary person. Stealthily, like a lizard, the servant crept up the ladder and reached the top, flattening his body. He cautiously looked inside. The sight before him made him gasp. More corpses than he had imagined lay scattered carelessly across the floor. The torchlight reached only part of the room, so he could not count them clearly, but there were at least 7 or 8. Some had no heads, some no legs, some only torsos or chests, mangled remains strewn across the darkened floor. On their shoulders and chests, white, swollen flesh showed through, bloated by decay. The pale meat and exposed bones glowed in the firelight, creating a horrifying scene. Among the bodies, the servant noticed a female corpse. She appeared to be around 50 years old, with white hair tangled like writhing snakes. Sitting in front of her was an old woman. The woman had a monkey-like face and wore a red robe. She was pulling out the dead woman's hair, one strand at a time. The servant felt intense disgust and fear, but at the same time, part of him thought, "This cannot be helped." The old woman noticed his presence and turned her glaring eyes toward him. What are you doing?" the servant demanded. After staring at him for a moment, the woman answered in a hoarse voice, "I'm pulling out her hair. I'll make it into a wig." The servant felt even more disgusted. Pulling hair from a corpse, what an evil act, the woman snorted. Evil. This woman used to kill snakes and sell their meat as fish to deceive people. So no punishment will come to me for this. The servant froze. Her words echoed the same thought in his own heart. If it's for survival, it can't be helped. The woman looked at him as if to say, "You believe the same thing, don't you?" After a moment of silence, the servant slowly stepped closer. "Then I, too, will take your clothes in order to survive." Before the woman could react, he seized her robe and threw her down. She screamed, but he ignored her, snatched the clothes, and ran for the ladder. Moments later, he vanished into the rain-soaked darkness. Only the sound of rain remained beneath Rashomon Gate. Rashomon may be only a few pages long, yet it is one of the most philosophically profound works in Japanese literature. This story is neither a simple ghost tale nor merely a crime story. Instead, it raises fundamental questions. How far can human beings abandon their morals in order to survive? Are good and evil truly absolute, or are they shaped by circumstance? The story is set in Kyoto at the end of the Heian period, a time when the city had been devastated by earthquakes, fires, famine, disease, and banditry. People struggled just to stay alive. Buddhist statues were destroyed and sold for firewood, and corpses were abandoned at the Rashomon Gate. Order and morality had collapsed. This ruined city is not merely a backdrop, it symbolizes the decay of the human spirit itself. The protagonist, a servant, has been dismissed by his master after many years of service. With no home, no job, and no future, he is forced to choose between becoming a thief or starving to death. What is important is that he is not a villain from the beginning. He knows that stealing is wrong, yet harsh reality slowly erodes his sense of morality. Standing beneath the Rashomon Gate in the rain, the servant keeps thinking about how to deal with his impossible situation. When people are pushed to their limits, survival begins to outweigh ideals and justice. Eventually, he reaches the conclusion that he has no choice but to become a thief. Still, this decision does not fully satisfy him. A small sense of morality remains within him. That is why he feels deep disgust when he sees what is happening on the upper floor of the gate. There he finds countless corpses and an old woman pulling hair from the dead. The bodies are damaged, decayed, and stripped of all human dignity. Death here represents not only horror, but a world where human beings are treated as objects. The old woman pulls hair from the corpses to make wigs and sell them in order to survive. She justifies her actions by saying that the woman she is stripping had once deceived people by selling snake meat as fish. Therefore, she believes no punishment will come to her. These words strike the servant deeply because they reflect the same logic he has been using in his own mind. If it is for survival, then even evil can be justified. The old woman represents what he himself may become. What is important is that the old woman is not portrayed as purely evil. She, too, is desperately trying to survive. In essence, she and the servant are the same, only their circumstances differ. The moment the servant accepts her reasoning, he commits his own act of survival-driven evil. He steals the old woman's clothes and disappears into the rainy darkness. There is no hope, no redemption, only the moment when morality is abandoned. Akutagawa does not provide a clear moral judgment. He neither condemns nor praises the servant's actions. He simply presents the event as it happened, leaving the judgment to the reader. This forces us to ask ourselves, what would we do in the same situation? If we lost our home, our job, and our means of survival, could we truly refuse to steal? Rashomon does not accuse humanity of weakness. Instead, it quietly shows that anyone could become like the servant under extreme circumstances. The story remains relevant today. Poverty, inequality, war, and disaster still push people toward survival at any cost. Many crimes are still explained with the words "to survive." Is good and evil truly absolute, or are they shaped by circumstance? Akutagawa offers no clear answer, because the answer lies within each of us. Rashomon is also deeply connected to the Japanese sense of impermanence. Nothing lasts forever, not order, not morality, not even human identity. People change according to their environment. The servant's disappearance into the darkness is symbolic. We never learn what becomes of him. Did he find happiness or fall even deeper into corruption? We only know that his choice cannot be undone. This blank space is one of Rashomon's greatest strengths. Readers project their own values onto the ending. That is why the story has continued to be read for over 100 years. If Akutagawa had offered hope or redemption, Rashomon might not have endured. It is precisely because there is no easy answer that we continue to reflect on it. Human beings cannot live by righteousness alone, but when we abandon righteousness entirely, what do we become? Rashomon continues to ask us this question quietly and endlessly. Thank you very much for listening to the story. Rashomon is a tale that quietly explores human good and evil, and the choices we make in order to survive. Upholding what is right is never easy, and when people are pushed to their limits, they may hesitate, struggle, and sometimes lose their way. The servant's future is never revealed. We do not know what kind of life he went on to live. The only thing we can be certain of is that the choice he made in that moment could never be undone. Although this story was written over 100 years ago, it still speaks deeply to us today. If we were placed in the same situation, what choice would we make? Would we hold on to what is right, or would we choose a different path in order to survive? May this story offer you a quiet moment to reflect on your own heart. Thank you very much for watching. We hope to see you again in the next story.